All right, what's going on, guys? Jack Kellogg here. December 2020 is in the books. 2020 is in the books. If you didn't know, I had my new best month in December of 790,000, which just blows out my previous best month of June, which was a little bit under 200,000. So about 4x. Market's just been absolutely insane. I had about 80 or 90% growth on my total equity this month. And what was it, 22 days. It was just a lot of insane action. We saw a lot of supernovas, MMEDF, RSCF, TSNP, and many others that I will talk about once we get into the trades. Um, Almost had an all green month, but lost. I didn't even lose money. I was realized, I think 9K this day, but I had some swing trades, so they counted on this day. Borrow fees were the most ever, which is what you have to expect as you size up and as you make your business bigger and bigger. The fees are going to go up and up. So it's just something you have to be okay with. And I know a lot of traders who spend way more in fees. Trading OTCs actually is really good because the fees to borrow stocks are less than a cent usually at a lot of these brokerages. And the low floats, I say this pretty much every single monthly recap, are just terrible. I mean, you're paying like 20 cents a low K. It's just ridiculous. But otherwise, shorting was not how I made my money this month. I actually made the majority of my money going long, 493,000, I think. And that makes up a good chunk of my month compared to shorting. And this has been the trend slowly since I took that bigger loss in September of 18,000 and 6,000, which blew out my new biggest long losses. I think my biggest previous loss going long was $1,000, and then I lost 6,000 and then 18,000 the next day. But that really fueled me to get better at going long, like I noted last video too in the November recap. So I took those losses and the market started becoming a buyer's market, and it just helped me size up and really learn how to maximize on the long side. So it's just been absolutely incredible market for the buyers. Shorting has been really tough. I lost 100,000, 114,000, I think. But I made like 400,000 shorting. So I was up around 300,000 shorting. I think high 200s, something like that. Show you the exact numbers later, but average loss was the biggest ever, over 2,000, but my average win was just under 6,000. My ratio was not that good. I think it's just under a 3.0 between average win to average loss to average win. Like I said, again, this just comes with sizing up. You pay more in commissions, you pay in more fees, so your losses start to get bigger. And a lot of traders who have these ridiculous stats, like my girlfriend, she actually just made a trading monthly recap, which I will link in the description. But her average win was 600 and her average loss was just over 100, which is about like a 5 or 6 x. And when you do size up though, the fees get bigger, so you have to kind of expect your average win and average loss to kind of tighten up a little bit. If you look at Tim Grittani's stats, his average win isn't that much bigger than his average loss once he started sizing up. And I did take a big loss of 36,000, but relative to how much money I made, the loss isn't detrimental. It's not like it's 10, 20, 30, 40% of my month. Like I would have to lose 80 grand for it to be 10%, which is kind of crazy, but 36K, it was a stupid trade, and I could have traded this better and could have cut my losses quicker, could have not taken so much size into this trade, which was LKNCY. It was a parabolic, and I just got blown out of the water in a power hour. Biggest profit was 63,000 on CYDY. CYDY offered another beautiful trifecta setup from June, which was my previous best month. I think I made about 75,000 on CYDY, and we saw the same exact setup this month. I think it was the 22nd, and I ended up making 92 or 93,000 on it between the short, long, and then shorting the bounce again. For anyone who doesn't know my strategy or doesn't know like a lot about me, You guys gotta watch all these previous videos on my YouTube channel. I have made a recap every single month this year. I came into this year with $112,000 to start in my accounts, and basically I've grown that now to 1.8 million, and that's about an 18x return on my entire capital. But if you come back to the beginnings, my average loss in January was $90.43. I didn't get here from luck or anything. I slowly built myself up through these entire months. So if something I'm saying is not making sense, I strongly suggest you go back and watch the actual process of how you get to this level. It starts with very small steps. Obviously, my average gain here was 13.4 thousand. But if you go back and look at that video, I'm pretty sure I would say my risk was a lot more on that because it was a different kind of trade. But other than that, I was just using $100 risk, building a cushion until I got my big trade, and then slowly I started scaling up the next month, scale up more. Kind of stayed at the same risk level for these 2 months. This month was really good, where I had a really small average loss and decent average win. And I just kept building myself up throughout these entire months. This was June, as I noted, which was my $75,000 CYDY day, 184,000. Average loss was 400. So I kept around like a $400 or $500 risk, or I tried for most of the year. And then at the end of the year, I started scaling up because the market got good, and just basically went for it this month. And another good thing to note was I got off to a really good start, which on the first, I made about 135,000, and that gave me a really good confidence and cushion to continue to scale throughout the month and keep the momentum alive as long as I can. And other than that, like, I did have one more $100,000 day, but a lot of these days are just really solid, like a bunch of days in the 70 and 80 range, and then a bunch of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 days. Finished out the year strong with a nice $49,000 day, and that is basically how I got to this point. So now, to get more into this month, we can dive into the monthly review. So biggest gain right there, CYDY. RSCF, another big one for 43. MMEDF, BITW. As you can see, like, a lot of longs are up here in my top 5 trades, 3 of them, and they're all between 30 and 40,000, and they're dip buys and breakouts. And that's what's really been working in this market, is dip buys and breakouts. Short selling has not been working less regularly than going long. So I mean, so many 5-figure trades here, and it's really just pushing myself to take more size, take more risk when the market's here. But you have to be aware of what's going on at all times. So if I started to go on a bad losing streak, I would have sized down immediately, probably back to $400 or $500, until I start seeing unreal opportunity. When there's so many things going on throughout the day, this is kind of how I tell when it's hot or it's not. When it's hot, you're going to miss trades all the time. And if you just look at your charts and you're like, wow, this was a beautiful breakout, this was a beautiful dip buy, this was a beautiful first red day short, and you missed it, that's kind of when you know that the market's hot, because there's all these plays going on. And when it's slow, like, you're looking for trades, you're trying to force trades, and you're going to see a lot more inconsistency throughout your months. And then obviously, seeing what other traders are doing is also a good judgment for how the market is. I follow a lot of traders, and that's kind of how I learned, is through other traders. On Profitly is how I learned how to trade. And I just watched other people trade, like Kyle and Dom, Huddy, Tim Gertani, Michael Good, Sykes. And I just observed how they trade, and that's kind of how I learned. So I still follow them, and they're all saying the same things about how good the market is. My girlfriend, she pretty much doubled what she made the entire year in the last month too. So, a lot of these traders really had their new best months. So that's how you can judge the market. So I did trade OTC about 90% of the time. I wasn't really even looking at NASDAQs just because I know for me that OTC is my edge over NASDAQ. And when there's an OTC play, that's ideal. And there's an ideal NASDAQ play, I'll focus on that OTC play every single day of the week because I've been trading OTCs for longer. I've been more profitable on OTCs. OTCs were my profitability in 2019. So 2020, I really scaled up on my OTCs because I was more confident, whereas NASDAQs are my first year of profitability. If you actually look at pattern performance here, this tab, so as you can see, these are my patterns, and 493,000 going long OTCs, 292,000 going short OTCs. And then NASDAQs, I took 4 NASDAQ shorts and 18 NASDAQ longs. So this really, all my profits came from the short side this month. Whereas as you can see throughout some other months here, I've taken a lot more NASDAQ trades. But I want to go up to the top here. So this is how the year finished. And I actually made my most money going long OTCs, which kind of feels good because that is where I made the majority of my money last year. And it was really slacking. As you can see, to start the year, 3K, 4K, 12K, 10K, 12K, 16K. That was for the first 6 months of the year. So I wasn't really doing good going long. But as you can see, into the back year, I needed to put more weight into going long. And then when I did take that big loss in September, I still finished up 17 grand going long. And then this is where I started pushing. I started getting the feel for it. Did a little bit better this month, and then just blew everything out of the water when everything lined up. Whereas I've been comfortable short selling for the first half of the year, so it's really good to get that forehand and backhand. So 695,000 going long or going short OTCs, and then 772,000 going long. And then as you can see here, my NASDAQ's just a little bit over 300. I want to get better at going long NASDAQs next year, so we'll see how that plays out. But other than that, let's get back into the monthly review. My win percent was very high because there were so many good patterns. 72% win rate overall. Gross profit was 802, but after my borrow fees, that's why I'm back down to 789. What else? I mean, average week right on that 200K mark, which is just insane. So basically, it was having a month every week because there were so many plays, so many A pluses. Profit factor was a 6.42. Almost made $1 million in gross profit, so 950, and then I lost 150. And then as I was saying, my shorting losses were huge. I lost 112,000 shorting on my gross side, and that brought my profit factor down to a 3.55. And my average short loss was $4,000, which is the most it's ever been. And I do think I scaled way too hard on some of these shorts when they didn't deserve it. This should have been maybe down to 2K. Average loss going long, 1,000. Average win, 5K. So really solid stats. That's kind of what I wanted to risk going into the month, was $1,000 on the long side and 2,000 on the short side. But my profit factor was still 6.42, so it's not like I'm going to be here and complain about it, but too much. But because my profit factor is still over a 5. And anything over a 3 is a good profit factor, but I think the elites trade from like a 5.0 profit factor and more. That's kind of what I strive for. So to get into some charts, I mean, these are my gains. These are my losses down here. So took some bad losses here. LK. NIAV was a stock that I was in since August. It was a pump. It just didn't dump. Super done with it. And then I took a huge loss on ALPP. Multiple times. Big loss on ALPP, like basically 4 times. The stock was really tricky. I'll get into that chart in a little bit, but let's get into some charts now. Start with MMEDF. This one was really good, and this was the one that kind of started the month where we started getting this breakout here in early December, and we just got an absolute parabolic run. And I missed this long because this was the time at the start of the month when I did get mono and strep throat. If you guys don't follow me at all, like I did get mono and strep throat at the start of December. So that made it really hard to swing trade. I was just taking quick, predictable profits at the start of December. Other than my first day where I made 135,000, that was because I was just starting to get sick, but I started to really get sick um, towards the end of the week there, and that really sucked for that first weekend. And some would rest and just quit, but the market was just too good, and I knew I had to just keep pushing through the pain, and that's what I did. Because this is what I dreamed of like 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I wanted these supernovas and this insane liquidity, and this huge euphoria of these stocks just making the insane moves. And they just follow the penny stocking framework because at the end of the day, stocks move based on human emotion. And the patterns, that's why they stay out, because the patterns just keep working, because that's kind of how human emotion works, where it kind of sneaks and then gets some hype. It goes supernova and then it gets way too extended, it crashes, and then it has to balance because it gets too extended to the downside. But basically, I had to show up, I had to keep putting in the work, and that's what I did. So MMEDF, I missed this on the long side, and then this first red day I started getting short bias, and I did short it this day, but it held up, and I covered my short, and it was like a small gain, so I wasn't tilted on it at all. But then I got super bullish on it, and I did go long here at $293 because I felt like this was a big short trap, and we could see a speed up. And as we started seeing increased volume this day, it was a really nice trade, and I think I locked in maybe like 10 to 15K on it this day going long, and then I swung some over the weekend. And as you can see, this stock gapped up from 360 to $4.30. So this stock had an amazing gap up, and I locked in more on it. And then I think I was up around 40,000 on the long side trading this, but I did give up some profits because I got a little too greedy, a little too bullish, and it dumped on me. So gave back a few thousand, maybe like 3 to 5K. And then I did short it, but I got chopped up. The short really wasn't good because, as you can see, like this candle is not the kind of candle we want to see. We want to see that insane buying pressure, like a candle like this where we're closing near the highs. We did have increased volume, and I should have trusted it more on this first red day, but I just didn't have it in me because it was choppy. So now moving on to RSCF. We'll pull up that one. So this was another one with a beautiful daily chart. This was a coronavirus kind of play, I'm pretty sure. I didn't really read too much into the news, but as you can see, it broke out this day on big volume, came back down and created these nice bottom daily candlesticks, and then started to creep back up and just went on this insane multi-day run over the 80 cent level to 330. And I didn't short it at all these 3 days, and I didn't go long either because it was kind of a liquid and hard to trade. And I was focusing on MMEDF at this time, I'm pretty sure. And anyway, this day it gapped up from 240 to basically $3. And if you've seen this daily chart pattern before where these things go supernova, was looking for the first red day, and basically it kept making wicks near 310-ish, and then we started to lose the open price around $3. So that's where I was getting short into, and it faded all the way down to sub 2, but I knew that this one kind of came straight up. So I thought maybe we could have a second red day, and I did stay short overnight, and then I covered the next day around 175, 170. So I left a good deal on the table. As you can see, it sold off for 33 cents. But I probably would have been out best case into the low 120s, 130s if I really had patience. So just an amazing unwind, and that was a good trade for me. So just as something to take in a note, like a lot of these trades show like a lot of size and not like the best percent gains, because a lot of the times like I'll dabble in and just cut until I get a feel for it. That's kind of my trading style. So a lot of people always on Profitly are always asking me like, wow, you took 500 grand worth of the stock. It's like, no, I didn't take 500 grand. Like, this is my average. So I'm in and out a bunch of times until I get a position. Like, I think I had 40,000 shares overnight short. So this says 182. So just take these numbers with a grain of salt. And at the end of the day, the P&L is what's important to me. Like I don't really even pay attention to how much percent gain there is or if it's a net gain or loss. I do like looking at the expect in R. This means how much this gain is. So my average loss is 2,300. So this is 27 times my average loss, and it's 62,600. And sorry if I'm talking really fast, but I have a lot of information to get out just because this month's been absolutely insane. So trying to jam pack this, maybe you guys could listen to it on a slower speed or just watch it multiple times. I've literally been giving away pretty much all my information for this entire year. And I started with 100,000 and now I'm closing in on 2 million. And like this information is really good, guys. I'm not charging anything for it. And I mean, I have like 2,000 subscribers on YouTube and I have like 2,000 views per video, and I just feel like that's super underrated for like the kind of information I'm giving out. And obviously it comes down to me, who like I don't push like my stuff. Like I'm just gonna put it out there, and it's kind of your job to find it and know what good and bad information looks like. So just wanted to note that. And now we can get into BITW, which was my best dip buy ever. This was, look at this, it's the same exact chart. Like, are you guys starting to notice? This was also 3 green days, gapped up huge. I did end up trying to short it, and I shorted it at 196, 197, and they filled me 7 shares. So I rage quit out of that one at 170, and then it just basically dumped all the way to, you know, $80. So a 50% dump pretty much straight up. And the dump was so good and it was high priced. So I took advantage to size into this because it wasn't like I needed to buy 5 million shares. When it is a $100 stock, I knew I could take a little bit more size. So I was basically looking to size into a $100 crack because I feel like that's where a lot of stop losses would be. So I sized into it below 100, like 90, 80s, 85. The bottom was 82 something. But it ended up bouncing to like 110, and I think I had a 90 average, and sold it into the bounce for 37,000. And unfortunately, I did miss the short. I wish I was short because the short offered, you know, 50% downside, and the bounce was only 15, 20% best case if you nailed the bottom to top. RVVTF was a very easy trade for me. I think it was the most straightforward trade for a lot of traders out there this month, where MMEDF was going crazy. And this is a shrooms play. And if you just look at the chart, I mean, this 35 level was just the money ball spot on the multi month and multi-day. So when these breakups line up and they're in a hot sector, and it's like a perfect sympathy play almost. So I got long at 35, and I added into my winner. I think I had like a 38 or 39 average with some realized already, and it gapped up, and I ended up selling my shares way too early for some reason, just because I was up so much, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sell. But I could have done way better in actually trying to wait to time the top with my sells. So I ended up locking in like 33K, but I'm not really happy with how I sold this one so early. I think I could have done better on it. So that was the most straightforward breakout trade, I think, this month. And the last one I'm going to talk about is LKNCY. This one has been a great trader since it got delisted to OTC. Went on a run here, a little run, a really good run here. And then some news came about them owing, I think, $180 million to the SEC. And people thought that was good, I guess. Maybe people were expecting more because it gapped up huge. And then I ended up trying to get long it, and I got chopped out. And then this was the day I lost 37,000. And it started going parabolic. It went parabolic from like 550 to like 660. And I knew there was some resistance here in the sixes. So I got short into the $1 spike with a huge position, and it only came back like 10 cents. And I just couldn't cover, and then it started skipping up. And if you guys were watching the tape, or you should go on demand on Thinkorswim and rewatch the tape, and it looked like there was a fun short or a fun buying at all costs, and they're just, the ask was 620, they're printing 635, 630, huge volume. And then basically the next day I did good shorting it, and this day I kind of messed up. My bad, guys. I was just getting a little sip of water. So basically, it never really had a good first red day. This day was kind of choppy, and it was a little bit more liquid. Only traded 16.5 million shares, whereas this day it traded 43.5. So I actually made more money shorting it this day when it had more liquidity because I could take more size. But this day, I couldn't take as much size because it was a little more liquid, and I ended up making some money shorting it. I mean, let's look. So yeah, I made 30,000 back shorting it the next day, and then I made an additional 21,000 this day, and then I think I shorted it one more time for 7,500. Yeah, I made another 7,500 on it this day right here. So it was decent. I mean, we'll see what happens with it this year. Maybe it will present more opportunities, but that is basically all I got for this year. I mean, it is January 2nd now, so the first day of the markets is going to be the 4th on Monday. So I'm super excited for this year. The market still looks pretty hot, and I just want to go in with the right mindset of optimizing and maximizing when the market is hot, and then as it cools down, you need to be very adaptive and take the foot off the pedal, put on the brakes a bit, and just chill and go with the flow. The market is always right. You're never going to be right 100% of the time. It's really cool to have this, 800K month, because I was already really happy with crossing the $1 million mark this year in early November. And just, 2 months later, I'm 50,000 from the next million. So it's crazy how compounding works when the market gets hot. And if you guys didn't see, I did have a Twitter post on how I kind of got my exponential growth on the long side. If you guys aren't following me, it's at jackaroo_trades on Twitter, which also will be linked in the description. So that's a graph of and I explained how I went exponential. So let's crush 2021 and keep taking it one trade at a time. I'll see you guys later.